This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy. We're giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate, where we can cover the market trends, news, and honest answers to keep you ahead of the real estate game. Laricy Live is brought to you by Lincoln Title. Lincoln Title is the best and most efficient title company in Chicago and is the best place to close your property. Laricy Live is brought to you by Guaranteed Rate and Ben Cohen. Ben Cohen is the #1 lender in Illinois and can close your loan in as fast as 8 days. Okay, so today we are talking about a hot topic. It is something that we've done numerous podcasts about, but we're going to bring it up again because, let's face it, it's a hot topic. We're talking about, what has happened since we've been 1 month into this new norm, as they're calling it. A lot of people have been saying this is the new norm, right? So this is the post-settlement. August 17th sent shockwaves through the real estate industry. Some people said that it would ruin real estate. It would kill every real estate agent in the world. The business would be no more. Commissions would go away. Some publications said that commissions would go down as much as 30%. So we've heard a lot of big things. Companies, started consolidating. People started closing. Everybody thought that the world would essentially end and real estate would forever change. But we're technically about a month and a week past, so I guess in more intellectual terms, we would say 5 weeks into this new norm. And what we want to do today is just kind of discuss kind of what's been happening. One of the biggest things is that there are buyer agreements now. So if you are a realtor and you are working with a buyer, you have to get a buyer's agreement signed. If you do not have that signed, you are not allowed to show them properties. Now, the one big loophole I'm seeing 5 weeks in is that technically speaking, first off, nobody's checking these agreements, okay? There's no police that has been going around asking if there has been any agreement signed. At least I haven't been asked, and I don't really know who would have the authority to look at it, minus the N.A.R. or Chicago Association of Realtors, but nobody's asked me about them. And to be frank, I haven't asked anybody to see theirs because I don't ask to see somebody's listing agreement when we schedule an appointment on their listing. Have I heard people touring without buyer's agreements? I have. Now, I am not a rat, so I'm not going to go out there and do anything about it. I do politely tell the other agent if I hear about it. I do say, listen, at the end of the day, the rules are the rules, and whether we like them or not, we must follow them. So I will say that, but I'm not, calling any authorities on it. But yeah, you do need to have buyer agreement signed, and to be honest with you, it's been the biggest change. What has been the pushback on getting people to sign these, right? So this is the big thing. Everybody was nervous about buyers signing these agreements. Nobody's going to want to do this. It's never going to happen. And I said numerous times on all these podcasts is that I would never take a listing without getting a listing agreement signed. So why have I been taking buyers around without getting a buyer's agreement signed? And I'll be honest with you, it's been pretty easy to get these buyer agreements signed. I've had maybe a handful of buyers refuse to sign them or not work with us for it. And some people may be like, Matt, that shows you it's not working. It's like, I got to be honest with you guys. And I've said this numerous times, more than half the buyers we take out aren't serious buyers, aren't going to buy anyway. So most of those handful of people they're just people who wouldn't have signed. They just weren't buyers at all. I think if you are good at your job, if you're passionate about it, if you actually have a lot of value to offer to people, and you have a willingness to work hard for your client, I think getting an agreement signed has actually been extremely easy. And from the front is because we take the job very seriously. We're not trying to sound like these cocky jerks. We get everything signed. It's I think we do I think we're really good at our job, and I think people feel that, and they're happy to sign our agreement. We also have a canceling time policy in our agreements. I tell people, if you don't like me, fire me for free. No exclusions, no questions asked. So honestly, it hasn't been that difficult. What's changed with first showings, right? So first showings are kind of tough, right? You never met a person. You got to get this agreement signed. Well, first off, we've never really taken buyers. We've been like super prepared for this because in my whole career, I've always done Zooms to go over like how this process works and kind of lay down the expectations in the market, you know, to these people. So this way people know like how we operate, how we like to communicate, you know, how things kind of work, and then talk about the market, what our value adds are, etc. And we do this so everybody's got the right expectations set, right? Like I like to, you know, I think the biggest problem I ever see with people is when they don't know what's happening and then things start happening and then they get frustrated, because the biggest thing that makes us mad is when we don't know what's happening, right? So, you know, we've had these Zooms, you know, already in place. So like it's rare we meet somebody for the very first time that's like a referral or a warm lead or anything like that. Meaning warm lead meaning that like they've heard of us through a friend, or we sold somebody's place on their street, so they reach out to us proactively. So first showings have been like easy on that front of getting people signed because we're doing consultation first. The online leads for showings has been much different. So like we're a partner agent with Zillow. So what that means is that we get leads from Zillow. And when Zillow sends a lead, Zillow has a touring agreement that has to get signed, okay? So it's a 7-day touring agreement. So essentially it ties these people to us for 7 days, okay? You know, those getting signed, we have a 95% success rate 5 weeks in of getting those signed. Okay, 95. It's been like, to get the touring agreement signed, first off, I do know for a fact people aren't getting these signed before they go, but we will not take a single, as raw and as weird and sociopath kind of personalities as I have, and as for people out there that know me or think they know me can probably tell, there's one thing there that I will not budge on is I am a rule follower to the T. I am a very ethical person. I will not break the rules no matter what. So we will not budge. We will pass on somebody if they will not sign that touring agreement, or we will cancel the tour. But it has been actually surprisingly easy to get people that we've never met to sign these touring agreements. And have I gotten some pushback from some people? Yeah. And like I tell people, I say, hey, listen, I didn't create the rules. I didn't make them. I don't like them. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to break the law. And if you want to see this property, you got to sign this touring agreement. That's it. And you know what? 95% of the time they're signing it. The 5% of people who haven't signed it, I'll tell you right now, this has been the conversation. It's like, hey, you got to sign this touring agreement to tour this property. Like, oh, well, like, we're just in town. Like, we're staying at the Trump, and like, we just kind of want to see what this place look like. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, and we're happy to show it to you so you can see what this place look like. Got to sign the agreement. And like, we're not buyers. We're not actually going to buy. We were just like kicking around on Zillow, just kind of want to see this place. Great. That's been the 5%. And to be honest with you, myself and my team have saved 5% of our time by not dealing with those type of people. So it's been really great. I've heard from people that use companies like Redfin and Realtor.com and some of the other sites. We have seen some people that would statistically just tour with these companies, just to tour, that they are losing clients. Now, I don't have the stats because I don't work with those companies. This is third hand through some agents I know at these companies, or other big listing agents who get requests from them, and then they get the cancellation, and then they get a request from the buyer for the same exact time. So that's something I've been studying big time. Is I've been asking other powerhouse listing agents, like, you know, we have some of the most listings in the city. There's honestly, there's like about 10 guys that like really have like the most inventory in the city, or girls, sorry, I'm trying to sound sexist. You know, 10 people have the most listings in the city. And I've asked them, I've been like, hey, are you guys seeing a lot of, you know, like confirmations and then cancellations and then people calling you for that same time? And they said, you know, they've gotten some, or it's been a different agent that's done that, you know? Meaning that like they've got like one of those online lead guys, and then they get a cancellation, and then they're seeing like an agent that maybe isn't very heavily involved with online leads scheduled for the same time, or the buyer reach out for the same time. So you're seeing some change ups in like the online industry leads, but it's not groundbreaking. It's not life changing amount of people. It's just something that we are seeing, and that's your kind of first showings. What about me? Like, when do I do the pitch of our buyer's agreements? So what I do is if it's an online lead, we go over to the touring agreement, and then, you know, we push for a Zoom, and then we mention it during our Zoom. Or If it's a warm lead, we do the Zoom, and at the end of the Zoom, I walk them through what the buyer's agreement is and what it means and why we have to have this signed. Again, the pushback, if it's like a Zoom consultation, I actually haven't had a single person push back or care. Honestly, this is the other big thing I want to mention. Most people don't care. Most people are kind of like, why is this happening? Like, what is it? Like, what are you talking about? And like, what does this matter to me? That's the majority of people I've been talking to. Now, my view is a little skewed because I am, a very active agent. I'm, very successful in the business. I don't mean to sound like that, like in a douchey way, but we do hold ourselves to higher standards. I think people kind of notice that, so that's maybe why I don't get any pushback. But I think if I was a brand new agent and I've never done a deal before, I could see maybe why some agents out there might get more questions. So if somebody's out there watching this, or your buyer out there is like, I asked my person a bunch of questions, like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I can tell you, me personally, after Zoom, I haven't had one single person not sign the agreement, nor have I had somebody push back on me for it. What about when you schedule showings? Are we seeing people ask if there's a commission being offered before they schedule showings? We're seeing some agents, like when we first, August 18th, let's call it, we were asking every time and then like making notes if they were offering or not. And by like August 20th, we stopped. It's too much. I've heard about this from people in Indiana because they've been doing this for a couple months. And they said that before they scheduled an appointment, they would ask if the seller's like willing to offer commission. And then they said they stopped because it was just too much. And I was like, that sounds like you guys are just babies. And then like I was like, it was just too much. It really was. Because what happens is like you schedule the appointment, and most agents aren't really good at like they either don't have a full-time assistant, or they don't have they just have like these go-in shows, so it's like automated. So then you have to like track down the agent. We're waiting to confirm the appointment, because our client wants to make sure that like, they understand if there's a commission going out. They want the full transparency. Okay. And that's what this lawsuit was supposed to be about, was transparency. And it was like, we were like missing showings. So by like August 20th, I mean, we didn't even last like 2 or 3 days. We're just like, listen, just schedule an appointment and we'll deal with it later. Like, that's it, So like, no, we don't really ask. I mean, if somebody's not offering commission, this is what I do know is like, they tell us like, we'll schedule an appointment like, hey, just so you know, we're not paying you guys. Like, we'll get that, and then we tell our clients, again, transparency. Commission is and always will be negotiable, okay? So let's make sure that's thrown out there right now. But I'm just telling you, like, this is what's happened in the industry, is people say it, but we haven't been asking about it. We do get people asking on our listings if we're paying a buyer's commission. It's not super common to get that question anymore. I think probably by the first week of September, most people kind of gave up on it. I think most people kind of felt the same way. It's just like, dude, it's just so much. It's just too much stress to worry about. Now, I have a full-time listing concierge, a scheduling concierge, we'll call her, and she sets up all of our listings. So I have somebody that can answer that question in 2 seconds. Most people don't. So I think most agents just got broken down, just like, we'll figure it out when we make the offer, So that's kind of what's been happening with that. Are we seeing companies change their listing agreements? I mean, I think every company's kind of changed their listing agreements. I think a lot of companies are being super misleading about the way they're going about it. This is just my experience 5 weeks in. I think a lot of companies are telling sellers to expect to not get broker compensation forms. I think they're just using this. I think a lot of companies are using this to try to take advantage of asking more money now. Every industry in the world has gone up. I think anybody who's bought anything or done any interaction, or I don't know, have you remodeled your house lately? Have you gone to the grocery store? Have you gone to the doctor? Have you done anything? Have you left your house and bought anything online? Anything. Everything has gone up. Except real estate has gone down since the pandemic. Our accessibility has gone through the roof. I mean, everybody wants 24/7 accessibility. And then like the technology aspect has gone up. So meaning that like consumers want more technology from us, and they want us to spend more. And then all the places that we buy the technology from, their prices have gone up. So everything has gone up and our commission has gone down. And then our employees' wages have gone up. Everything has gone up. And I think a lot of the big companies they've felt this, because a lot of the cost, the margins, I've done this before. Like everybody's like, I can't tell you how many people I talk to that hate realtors, and I get it. And somebody's going to comment on this, how much you hate me, and I get it. Great. But the margins aren't as big as you think if you do it correctly. Are there a lot of scumbag agents out there that get paid a ton of money and don't invest anything at all and like literally do nothing with their time? 100%. I would say there's a large portion that do that. And don't worry, guys, this law is weeding those people out. But for the people who do it correctly, the margins aren't they're really not that big. They're not. And a lot of these companies have, they understand this. And so what they're doing is they've all upped their commissions. So I can tell you that, I've seen a lot of the bigger companies change their commissions. And so when we talk about do we notice that people's listing agreements change? Yeah, we've noticed a lot of people are charging more on the list side. And they're kind of essentially sweeping the buying side under the rug until offers come in. And I think it's a little bit more misleading because they're essentially, and again, everything has been and will be and remain negotiable, and it is always up to the buyers and sellers. But I feel like they're just not explaining it as well it should be, and in my opinion, being a little bit misleading about it. And that's actually led to commissions going up. So while most of the media said that commissions can go down as much as maybe 30%, I've personally seen the opposite. I've actually seen in the 5 weeks. Again, we got a long way to go, guys. In the first 5 weeks, I've seen commissions go up, not down. So it's had the reverse effect of what people has. And what I've seen is buyers' commissions have gone up, and I've seen listing agreements, the pricing has gone up. So as of now, I've seen it change, and that's because people's changed their listing agreements. Now, how are people pitching, to their sellers about paying out commissions? Everybody can do things differently. I can't tell you what a big box company does compared to another big box company. I can tell you just what I'm seeing and hearing. I won't name any company names. I can tell you that the way I'm telling my sellers is to expect when offers come in that there will be a broker compensation form. So when people make offers, somebody makes an offer, they have a broker compensation form. So this is what you do. So if we're working together and you want to make an offer on a property, we would make there's an agreement, like the Chicago Association of Realtors have one. Each company, a lot of the big box companies have their own, they're just for their companies. I use the one from the Chicago Association of Realtors, and it says hey, the seller agrees to pay my company this much money with their offer. So it's part of the offer. So you put it on, I put it on the front page. This way my buyer sees it firsthand, and the seller sees it firsthand, and then the contract comes from there. And that broker compensation form is signed off by the buyer and the seller. And I kind of like it because it puts the money out there right off the bat. There's nothing being swept under the rug about the commissions. But what's happening is you submit these offers, and it's got the broker commission statement on there of what we're requesting with our offer. Now, when I go on listing appointments, I tell my sellers that I'm interviewing for, I say, hey, listen, this is what I charge on the listing agreement. And just note that when people submit an offer, I would expect when we're doing our numbers that people are going to be asking for a broker compensation of, X price on this type of property. Depending on what it is, I'll tell them what it is, I can't price fix and tell you a certain number. I'm just telling you, when I go on a selling appointment, everything's different, everything's negotiable, but I say, I would budget for this, because I think the big thing is setting your seller's expectations correctly. I think a lot of companies are being extremely misleading in the last 5 weeks of not having that discussion. And I know that because I've gone on about almost 30 listing appointments since then, and I'm betting 95% on them. And I'm coming in and I'm like, well, this is what to expect. And people are like, huh. You're the first person to kind of break it down like that. I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're like, well, people didn't really say this would go down like this. I'm like, interesting. It's funny that people just aren't being transparent about it, because this whole lawsuit is about transparency, being transparent. And I think some companies are teaching these people to not be as transparent as they should be, which I personally think is a problem. Because what I'm telling people is listen, commissions have been, always will be negotiable. In my experience, this is what I charge, Mr. Seller, and this is what I would expect to get. So when we price the property and you say, I want to net, because all you care about is what you net, what do you put in your pocket, this is what you should be expecting on a price perspective. And I break down the closing costs for them so they have them. And then we can make a decision of how you want to price it and where the market is, and to try to get to the number that makes you most happy. And I think that's the best way to go about it, to be as transparent as possible. Is everybody doing that in the first 5 weeks? No. Are people being like super misleading on it? Yep. Am I seeing people say that it's illegal to pay buyers commissions? 100%. I've seen a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of weird things, but I can only tell you is that, like, overall, we are seeing that on listings, we are seeing a lot of the companies, the big box companies, charge more on the list side. And a big thing that I've noticed from numerous big box companies is that if there's an unrepresented buyer, their price is almost double. So if somebody comes in unrepresented, their pricing is up. So what that's doing is it's showing that, you know, a lot of buyers think they'll go without an agent and think they'll save some cash. But what I've seen is that it's actually been the opposite. Now, again, not price fixing, not saying that commissions aren't negotiable. I'm just telling you, like, what I'm seeing, hearing, smelling in the field of how some of this stuff has been kind of going down firsthand. What about sellers? Is there a lot of sellers that are refusing to pay a buyer's commission? So, you know, there's, you know, when we make an offer and you got the broker compensation form, you send it over. Am I seeing any of the sellers say, hey, we'll counter that, but just so you know, we're not paying a buyer's broker? Am I seeing a lot of that? I am not. I haven't seen a ton of it. Now, guys, again, I'm in Chicago, so somebody might be in Florida or Texas saying, well, I'm seeing it all the time. Great. You know, there might be a seller watching this saying that you refuse to pay a buyer's commission. Listen, you as a seller, you have the right to do whatever you like. Everything has been, will be, and always will be negotiable. So you could, if you're a seller out there watching this and being like, I'm not going to pay one, you don't have to. By all means, you don't have to. The question is, am I seeing it firsthand? I am not. Now, I have had numerous sellers call me and tell me that no matter what happens, they won't pay a buyer's broker. Like, give you an example. Like, somebody's called me up and said, hey, I got an $800,000 property. I want to sell it, but I'm not going to pay out a broker's commission no matter what. And I said, no matter what? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, so you said you want $800,000. He goes, yeah. I said, hypothetically speaking, let's just use hypotheticals. He goes, okay. I'm like, you like kind of theories? A lot of these guys always like theories. I'm like, oh, a little conspiracy theory? Like, yeah. I'm like, all right, let's go. And I go, you want $800,000? He goes, I want $800,000. We'll take $1 less. I'm like, not $1 less. He goes, no. I'm like, what if I got you $1 million? He goes, well, you got $1 million. You make me super happy. I'm like, okay, what if I got you $1 million? But with that $1 million, you'd have to pay out a buyer's commission. Would that work? He goes, no. I said, okay, so let's just back this up. If somebody gave you $1 million and you got to pay a broker's commission, you wouldn't take that. But if somebody brought you an $800,000 offer, not paying out the broker's commission, you'd pay that. He goes, yeah. I said, you know, you do realize that doesn't make any, like, on a math equation, that doesn't make any sense. Like the price differences, you know? And, you know, they argued with me. They said they just don't want to pay a buyer's commission no matter what. And that was the thing. And I said, listen, at the end of the day, this isn't probably the best relationship for me personally, just because, and listen, it's been those places have gone on the market with other people, and God bless them. But, you know, for me personally, I'm not just as much as some people know me as like I want to be the best and I'm numbers guy. I also value my reputation, and I like to work with people that, I work with a lot of people that hate me, but I want to work with somebody that I also think is going to be like we're screaming at each other constantly. Because if somebody is on a principal statement willing to take on 800, but just because of principle won't take $1 million with a buyer's commission, that's just to me going to be a road to disaster. That means that I'm dealing with a person that may just be a little bit unhinged, and something that I really don't want to risk my business to be in that relationship. So those people, those sellers will and do exist. I do not think they're the majority. I think they're the minority. But again, for everybody out there, is that like this is a different way of life. Pre-August 17th, a seller was pretty much required to offer $1 as a minimum, and today they can offer $0. Every seller is different. It's like I tell the people who call me up like that and say they refuse to offer, I say, listen, they make red cars, black cars, and blue cars. Everybody's got their own opinion. You could do whatever you like. If you don't want to work with a broker or you don't want to work with a buyer's broker, there is nobody forcing you to do so. You can sell this on your own. You should use a real estate agent for convenience, for market experience, to try to get you the most money, to market the crap out of the property, to get that place sold. if you feel like you could do that job as good or better, by all means, use yourself. There's never been a law in America that you have to work with a real estate agent. And one thing I've noticed is that people who don't want to work with, brokers in general, real estate agents, they hate real estate agents. In fact, the few listings that I have passed on, about 50 to 60% of the conversation was about how useless realtors were, what scumbags and cockroaches we were, and how that we shouldn't exist in life, and they hate me more than anything in the world. And I say, hey, listen, I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate that I've just received a random phone call from somebody I've never met, and you've told me what a terrible piece of shit I am. Although we've never met, we've never had any interaction at all. You're judging me based off. This is a big thing I always say: is like, don't blame your ex-girlfriend for don't blame your current girlfriend for your ex-girlfriend's mistakes. I say that all the time to people. I'm like, I don't know what you're blaming me for. Like, we're just talking here, buddy. Like, this is day one, combo one. Like, I feel like we could have been best friends and just took a wrong turn. Okay, and it's almost like these people hate life in general so much that they just want to call and yell at somebody, and I'm just the other asshole on the other line that picked up the phone. But what I've noticed is these are just people I never want to be in a relationship with in general. A big thing about the business is, I say this all the time, but this isn't a sales business. We're in sales, and we got to sell, and we got to do what we can. But it's also a relationship business. It's built off reputation. And for me, I like to have a good reputation, not just with my consumers, meaning buyers, sellers, the general public, the people who buy my listings that I don't represent, but I never want people to really feel like they got effed in general. Now I want to win. I'm going to fight for my client. I have a fiduciary responsibility for it, but I want to carry myself to a higher standard that people respect me. They may not have won, but they respect it. But I also want to be respected by my peers as well. And part of having all of this and wanting to be all of this is that you have to be in a relationship that is a winning relationship for all, and to be in a relationship where the other person is so violently against your profession, it just doesn't really make a ton of sense for me. Could I make 4, 5, 10, 20 grand, maybe make it be a $5 million sale? I'll still pass on it. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I am not in this business for the money. I'm in the business because I love the process. I fucking love to work. I love to work so much, and I love the process so much. And if you're ever in any job, no matter what it is that you do for the money, you'll never win and you'll never be happy. And that's just a fact. And being in relationships with people who don't want to be in a relationship with you is a recipe for disaster. Am I losing more buyers because people already signed up? Okay, let me rephrase this. Now I get what the question. Some of these people write these questions. I don't know what it means. You know what I mean? So here's what it is. Essentially, like, am I meeting somebody? Like, let's say I'm meeting John Smith. Me and John, I'm rapping with this guy. We're like, man, this guy's awesome. Love this dude. Like, me and John are cool. Not just John, guys. John. And he's like, listen, I want to use you. And I'm like, all right, awesome. He's like, but I'm already signed up with a buyer's broker. Am I seeing that happen? Yes. And I'm seeing that happen. I'm seeing that happen more than I'm seeing people not sign an agreement. Okay. So that's what I'm seeing more of, is I'm seeing people that, like, we probably would have had, but they've already signed up, and they're just not the type to be confrontational, and they don't want to get out of their agreement. And I'm also not a pushy guy. Like, if I'm like, yo, listen, like, I feel like we should work together, and I'm in a relationship, I'm like, listen, do you like the relationship you're in? Like, are you happy with where you're at? And if they say, like, I kind of am, then I'm like, good, stick with it. Like, and if they tell me they have problems, I'd be like, listen, it's like it's like dating. I'm like, if you have these problems, just like ask the person about it and see if they can work it out. And if they can't, call me back. But if they can, then you should work with them. I'm not here to step on anybody's toes. I don't want to work with anybody that doesn't want to work with me, but I'm also not going to overstep my boundaries. My industry, a lot of people will do everything they can to belittle their competition to then win the business and then win that person. But I'll tell you right now, I've gotten as much business from somebody asking me for advice, sticking with whoever they worked with, and then that person has come back to me, like, they bought, 5 years later they call me and is like, hey, we talked one time, I'm gonna give you this listing. I didn't like my last person because of X. And then they've given me referrals in those 5 years in the meantime. So it's like, not everything's about the sale today. Some things are about the sale 10 years from now. It's about that relationship that we were kind of talked about in my last tangent. But the reality is we are seeing a lot of people be already committed. And it is maybe taking away some at-bats, but it's also, on the flip side, it's bringing us more at-bats, because I am also seeing, that brings me to my next tangent, more buyers starting to interview a little bit harder. It's starting to slowly do it. I know I've gotten personally 4 buyers that I definitely would not have had, who clicked on an online button, went on one of these online tours. They probably pre-August 17th would have been stuck with those people. Found out they had to sign a longer-term agreement, and then they decided to interview people. So they interviewed 3 different agents. They interviewed the person they toured with. They interviewed, who knows who, and then they interviewed me. And we picked up 4 of those people. So, that's been something that we've seen has been different, as we're starting to see buyers interview. I've never understood why buyers don't interview. Pre-August 17th, I think buyers didn't really interview as much. And I think buyers interviewing agents is going to start to become a little bit more of the standard. Whereas on listings, I can't remember the last time I went on a listing appointment and the seller didn't tell me hey, we're interviewing a couple people. Hey, don't you forget. It's almost like they want to remind you, hey, you are getting shopped, And it's listen, I think a lot of brokers probably clam up when that happens, or they get nervous, or I know for a fact a lot of agents who you interviewing, and let me tell you why I'm better than them, blah blah blah. And same thing on the buy side. And I always tell people, listen, I expect you to interview other people. This is what I always say. I'm all right, that's great. If you have any, and I always say, if you have any questions on what I said and what I offer, okay, let me know. And there's a lot of times where people, and now the buy sides are starting to say, well, do you want to know who you're interviewing against? No, I don't care. And they're like, well, people said stuff about you. That's great. Let them say what they want to say. Ultimately, the only thing I care about is what I have to offer you. Here are my services. Here's why I think I'm great at my job. If you feel like I'm not great at my job, or you don't feel like we're a good personality fit, awesome. I honestly do. I wish you the very best. Not everybody's meant to work with everybody. I always want to win. I don't want to lose, but I also don't want to wish anybody bad upon anybody else. I'm not going to talk shit to get anybody's business. I always say, if I lose because of me. I don't lose because of John or Jill or anybody else. It's me against me, okay? It's you against you. That's the way to look at it. And if I ever lose, it's on me. It's not anybody else. So I'm not here to talk shit to win business. I'm here to prove that I'm the best. And if you think I'm not the best, choose somebody else. But we are seeing people start to interview a little bit more. What about these admin fees? This is a big one. People charge admin fees, right? So there's some companies that are going crazy. Here's what I'm seeing. This is a big thing I'm seeing with some of this stuff. Lack of disclosure. This lawsuit was all about transparency, right? So one of the things is are we seeing sellers counter commission? Yeah. We're seeing maybe a commission come over at X, okay? And then we're saying, well, listen, we'll give you X at this. And then they're like, no, I don't accept this. There's some big companies where they say that their buyer, and I have text messages to prove this. I'm not going to call anybody out, but I have at least 10 text messages from one company in particular that states the sellers are no longer in charge. The buyers are in the driver's seat. And I'm like, that's actually the complete opposite. That actually doesn't even make any sense. The sellers are in charge. The seller can dictate if they want to give commission or not. They can give 0. And I say to them, I say, we're countering you at this. And they say, well, I have a buyer's agreement signed at this price, so you have to pay me. And I'm like, well, listen, commissions have been, always will be negotiable. If my seller doesn't want to pay this, they don't gotta. And then they argue with me. The agents are arguing with me. I say, listen, get in writing your buyer countering that. Just get it in writing. Have your buyer sign an agreement saying that they refuse that, and then I'll bring it to the seller. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Every problem I've had with this, the agent won't bring that to their client. Won't. I'm talking to their managing broker. Everybody at their companies call me. I'm like, listen, guys, I don't know why everybody's yelling at me. Just call the buyer. Wasn't this about transparency? Isn't this just about transparency? You're supposed to tell the buyer everything, yet you won't tell it to them. Now, if I get a counter on one of my stuff, I tell my buyer, I'm like, hey, listen, they don't want to pay. In fact, if they ever counter, if I get a counter, because one of the questions is, are sellers countering commission? If I get a counter where they counter the commission, and I got a few people, I get buyers on here to do it, copy and paste. I'm like, here's what they countered, guys. Just notice they countered the commission on there too, just so you know. I'm not hiding nothing. I don't hide behind any walls. I'm an open book. I'm as transparent as transparent could get. In fact, I'm transparent to a T. I tell you everything. That's my biggest problem. One of my biggest flaws. I'm a motor mouth, you know? But what I've noticed with some of these companies is they're just, when it comes to admin fees and this other stuff, they're not telling their clients anything. They're saying, my buyer's agreement is God, and if you don't want it. And my biggest problem with some of these companies is that their buyer's agreement is God until you make an offer on their listing, and then magically, the buyer's agreement doesn't matter. And so I keep telling people, I'm like, it's funny that when you make offers on our listings, buyer's agreements are life, but when it's the shoes on the other foot, buyer's agreements don't matter. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. So what I've noticed, probably one of the biggest takeaways is lack of education from a lot of the companies on their particular clients or on their particular agents on what this law really means to the buyers and to the sellers. That's what I've noticed. That's probably one of the biggest problems that I've run into personally is trying to educate the community about what you can and can't do, which I think has been probably one of the biggest frustrations that we've gotten into. And I'm an open book, so if I get something, we talk it to people. But I would say that that's probably hands down one of the biggest frustrations we have is that you get agents who think that you can't pay a buyer's broker. You think agents who think the sellers or the buyers are in charge. You get companies who just literally it's like they didn't even read the rules. And so that's been fun. It's been interesting. And well, let's leave it this. Like two things. One of them is that, what's my overall takeaway 5 weeks in? Nothing. It's just a few more conversations. Some more heated arguments with agents, but overall, is the world ending? No. Is things changing? Yeah. I'm actually excited about it because honestly, I'm just seeing like part-timers, people who didn't take this job seriously just get wiped out. I think the consumer is going to long-term win on this because they're going to be dealing with more professional people. So I think this is all solid things. Another thing, just throwing this out there. Probably more than 80%. I don't actually have like the real data behind it, but like at least 80% of consumers have no idea what happened. They didn't know about August 17th. They're not familiar with it. I bring it up because I'm a transparent guy and walk them through what happened and why. And like I get a blank stare. It's like, when you get really drunk, you just got that blank stare and you're just like looking and you're like, I don't know what's happening. You know what I mean? Like that's the stare. I could tell when I'm talking to somebody, they're just like gone. I'm like, hey, listen up. This is what happened. And people are like, yeah, dude, like, I don't care what happened. That's like 80% of the people are like, yeah, I don't care. It doesn't, like, what's it affect me? Like, what do I need? Just shut up. Tell me what I need to know. That's it. So, like, do I think the world's going to end? No. Do I think that this is going to strengthen the industry long term? Yeah. It's going to weed out we're cutting the fat. It's like, I remember, man, I used to be fun. I'm not fun anymore. But back in the day, I was a fun guy to be around. Frat days, I was a guy that you hate. I would hate myself 20 years ago. You know what I mean? But listen, we all got to grow up and change. But the big thing we used to always say back in the day was we got to cut the fat. Just got to cut the fat. And that's all we're doing. We're cutting the fat. So you got any questions about this lawsuit? What's happening? You're a buyer out there. Like, dude, like, what does this mean for me? Like, how do I get prepared? You're a seller being like, how do the rules apply to me? Let me know. You're an agent out there. It's like, dude, like, I don't understand. My person's not explaining to me correctly. Can you just give me a quick lowdown? I'm here for you guys. Either way, thanks for listening to Laricy Live.